So I'm Katie Rössler. Today we're going to be talking about the burnout culture that's happening throughout the world and the dangers of being limitless, because in a way we are sort of limitless now. I'm a licensed therapist and burnout and hidden grief specialist. I've written books. I do consulting work for companies. I have a podcast called The Balance Code. And we're going to dive into this topic. And I'm sure you're going to have questions. Like she said, let's leave them to the end because I have such a short time to share this info. And I want to make sure you get tools to pull yourself out of the burnout culture. Okay. So when we talk about burnout, a lot of people use the word incorrectly. It's become a buzz phrase. And I even have like my kids using burnout or I'm stressed out. I'm like, you are like 6 years old. Why is this happening? So burnout, when we think about burnout, I want you to think of a long, slow burn, slowly over time. It takes months. For some, it's even over a series of years that you really develop and fully hit burnout. Some people have such intense work where they're constantly have like chronic stress where they can burn out with a matter of weeks, but it's usually longer than that. And it's sort of the wearing you down over time. When you go, okay, well, I had a really tough week and I need like a weekend off because I'm burnt out. What you mean is you are stressed out or you've hit overwhelm. So as we start to use this vocabulary correctly, I want us to think about these 3 areas when it comes to burnout. One is we hit exhaustion. And how many of you have had like the full day has been basically sitting down, working at the computer or on your phone, and you haven't done much physical activity, but physically you're like, I'm exhausted. Like I can't even, right? Because the mind-body connection is so strong. What happens is we are going into fight or flight. An email frustrates us, a client frustrates us, something we read frustrates us, right? Like, I can't figure out this problem. And so our body kicks in with the adrenaline and that, it gets our brain going. We think of what to do, or we get upset and we like want to take action. So our body's constantly in, should I run? Should I freeze? What should I do? And so that's why we experience that physical exhaustion at the end of the day when our brain has been going. So we have this exhaustion. It's the trifecta, emotionally, mentally, and physically, right? Then we have a reduction in our productivity. And it's annoying because we know we can get more done. We know that we don't usually forget this much. We know that foggy brain is not usually our problem, but for some reason, it's just getting worse. And it just makes us angry at ourselves. We'll beat ourselves up. We'll work even harder. We'll work even later into the night because we know we need to make up for, or we believe we need to make up for that reduced productivity. And then the third thing is we get to the point we're just so over it. We're so tired and we're like, screw this. And we become disconnected and very cynical. And you'll start to sort of numb out and be like, say things like, I don't even care anymore. Like, I'm so over this. I'm just ready to turn this in. I'm just ready for this to be over. Like as soon as you start to say those things and you're exhausted and you're not doing as well, we're there. We're in that burnout space. And when we hit that space, when it is true burnout, it actually takes almost the same amount of time of getting into it to get out. It takes months. And it is an exhausting process in the sense of it's figuring out what got you there and shifting what was going on to get you out of it. So like if it was people pleasing and working really hard and like my worth is in what I do, then it's going, okay, I need better boundaries. My worth isn't working till 4 a.m. on this project and getting 5 hours of sleep and then getting back up and keep working on it. I'm already worthy. So we have to be paying attention to what is creating the burnout and the symptoms we're experiencing. And I really like to show this graph of what's going on. This is 2019, guys. So we're not like the post-COVID rates. We don't have a graph like this yet from the World Economic Forum, but like Deloitte, Boston Consulting Group, the research they're coming out with, it's way worse. I live in Germany, though I'm American, and my husband and I, he's German, so I can say this. We like to joke that Germany's always like 5 to 7 years behind the US with things, good music, good trends and bad trends too. And so we're like, God, just wait. We're gonna catch up, unfortunately, here too. But the UK, the United States are the two highest, and Spain is next. So it's something we need to be aware of. And companies around the world are starting to realize our clients and our employees are not functioning as well as they used to. Things are not working out like they used to. What can we do differently? So I believe, because I'm speaking to you all, that it's in the eye of the person who is learning about it to start to make the shifts in your life. Okay, so number one, what is causing us to get there? Well, if you've ever done any type of therapy or self-help work, then you know the iceberg, right? Like usually anger is at the tip, and underneath is all the stuff you feel below it. The fear, the sadness, the regrets, the frustration, the guilt, all of that. Well, I come from the world of hidden grief. And for me, the tip of the iceberg is what we see of the problems that are happening, disconnect from, the work we were doing. We just don't care anymore. We're exhausted. And underneath it are the things that cause the hidden grief. So here's an example. A client came to me and he said, hey, for the last year, I've been working on getting out of burnout. I had to leave my job. Like I just couldn't do it anymore. And it was in the middle of COVID. I was just, I'd wake up, get on my computer, immediately start doing stuff, brush my teeth. I was on my phone. I was just constantly in front of the screen. And I just realized like, I can't do this anymore. So I got to see him a year outside of leaving that job and really hitting the what he thought was the worst of his burnout. And I said, what do you think got you here? And he said, well, I had really poor boundaries around my work. I would work all hours and never really took a break. And the second thing was I never spoke up for myself. I never said when I didn't like something. I never said, hey, I don't agree. I just allowed them to do whatever, even though I was in a position I could say things. So I said, okay. And those of you who did guided meditation with me yesterday, have him close his eyes. We do a guided meditation and I lead him to, when in your life did you feel the same feeling of like, I have no voice. I can't really speak up for myself. And he was brought back to a time when he was 8 years old on the dining room table doing homework. And he remembered vividly, I remember doing a math problem and I can tell you the math problem right now. It was the simplest answer, but I froze. And my dad was sitting next to me and he got really annoyed. And this is a Portuguese guy. And his dad was very traditionally Portuguese and was like, come on, why can't you figure this out? What's going on? And it was just pushing and pushing and pushing. And my client continued to freeze. And the dad just got even more angry because that was just his way of like, why can't you figure this out? Are you stupid? Like, what is this? And he was able to say, in that moment, I learned I never wanted to fail again. I never wanted to get things wrong. I will always work hard so that I'm never the last or unable to come up with an idea. And also I learned not to poke the bear. I learned not to speak up, not to say much, just work. And it took him a moment, but he was like, wow, I can see this in my failed marriages. I can see this in my other work situations. I was just always quiet. And I just did what everybody told me to do because I didn't want to get yelled at. So this is just an example of how hidden grief can show up and come back and bite us in the butt, leading us to burnout. A second area where burnout tends to happen is, and so we want to be aware of our past because it does impact our future. A second area is we're plugged into the matrix. I love speaking at groups like this because I can use this example and we fully get into it, right? We're super plugged in. How many of you can sit at a doctor's office in the waiting room and not get on your phones? How many of you can go in the grocery line and not get on your phones? Or sit in traffic and not get on your phones? We're so attached to being like, let me read, let me listen to that podcast, let me watch that video, let me catch up on the news, let me see who posted about this, let me write my own stuff. And we're constantly feeding our brains information. But the problem is our brains are not programmed or prepared to be able to take in all of this info, right? Our brains are like, whoa, I'm still getting over caveman time. I still think everything's like a lion chasing after me when we're stuck in traffic. You want me to take in constant information? And so we're exhausting ourselves. Before we've had our coffee first thing in the morning, we've hit decision fatigue. because we've been on our phones or we've been listening to something, we're already planning and doing all this stuff, and we haven't given ourselves the decency to be like, let me wake up. Hello, brain. How are you today? Hello, body. Let me stretch. Okay. Let me drink that coffee without interruption. So we're plugged in. And we've lost respect for our own time when it comes to this. We will be the first to apologize that it took us 30 minutes to respond to a text message or an email. It took us 24 to 48 hours longer than we would have liked. I don't know. I think about the fact that, like, so when I was growing up, AOL chat and all of that, like, you were okay that it took you a whole day the next day to finally get back into the chat group and start writing with people. It didn't matter. And I know that my parents never apologized that maybe it took them 3 or 4 days to finally call a friend or check in on a family member. So now there's this urgency that we have to respond so fast because we're limitless, we're available, we can be available. And so we forget to have boundaries around our time. We don't apologize to ourselves that we worked for 2 or 3 hours longer than we really needed to, but we'll apologize to somebody that took us 30 minutes longer to send a text message response. So this is what leads us to burnout. Then the third thing is, we all know this beautiful little fish, little Dory, who likes to say, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. We all have that motivational voice, whether it's the just keep going, you've got this, dig deeper, that cheerleader, who all of a sudden turns really mean and nasty when we kind of start doing a little bit less. What are you, lazy? Why can't you do this? Why can't you think of that answer? So this voice that seemingly was really positive and helping us do well in life turns really ugly and mean when we start to relax more or rest or put our phones away and go for a walk without it. How dare we? What? We don't have it next to us. And we start to become our own worst enemy. And that, honestly, is the addiction. Because our amygdala that likes that pleasure is like, wait, hold on. Why aren't you giving me what I want? And it's like, no, I want to rest. I don't want to feed into the drama. So that voice we have to be really mindful of. When it starts to switch to that, you can almost talk to it like it's a little child and be like, oh, I know you're temper tantruming right now, but no, I'm going to rest. I'm going to take a break. So how do we separate ourselves from this burnout culture and this trend that's happening? And it's an upward trend, not in the good way. There are 3 things I want you to walk away from this talk with. The first thing is to remember that your up and your down are very different than others. We are all here creative visionaries in different ways. What energizes us is different for each of us. And what the world and the marketing strategies out there will tell you is it needs to look like this. It's only in this form, it's only in this size, but that's not true. What lights you up and energizes you, and I don't mean like, I'm so excited, I'll keep working and working and working on this. I mean like truly lights you up. A good conversation with a friend over coffee. Like there's times where you go for a hike in nature and you're just like, whoa, at the sight. That is what fills up our battery, but we need to know what that is. And the things that drain it, particular people, particular tasks, particular things that we do to ourselves as well. That dig deep button that keeps us going into the ground, digging deeper, eventually we're really going to hit rock and we can't keep going deeper and we're going to just hurt ourselves. The dig deep button is for crises, not everyday work, okay? So I want you to remember that. Like, I can dig deep. Your dig deep button is for the serious stuff, not for the like, oh man, if I work 1 more hour, I'll get through this. No, don't do that to yourself. The second is to break up with the internet. No, break up with social media, break up with that need for the notifications and what's next and who has messaged me and let me check this. And it's not you, it's them. It's the screen time. You're just fine. But somehow we've got into the gamification of it all. And it's kind of fun and it's addictive like crazy. So being able to go, you know what? I'm going to take the weekend off or nights off, or the first hour of the morning, I'm not touching my phone. I'm not touching a screen. That's all it takes. I'm not saying like, stay away from it all. I'm saying have boundaries, give yourself like tech breaks. I'm not going to do it. Like Bryce, you're in front of that screen a lot with editing. I know it. I'm sure you do this, but give yourself those breaks. From here to here, I'm not touching a screen and my eyes are going to stare at a green tree because nature is real, right? Like we need that. So recognizing that. Then lastly, don't be scared of the hidden. It is very easy for us to assume, like the guy at the very beginning of the story, that, it's just what's on the surface that's the problem. And it can be very scary to go, ooh, do I really want to open those closet doors and see what skeletons are there? But honestly, they're already there. They're already like playing you like a puppet. So why not go, let me bring this to the surface and to the front. Let me see what it is, because I don't want to be part of this burnout culture. I don't want to keep feeling driven by things that are unhealthy. And I want to understand what motivates me in good ways, what motivates me in bad ways. If you attended my workshop yesterday, then you know the 4 big drivers is that fear of failure, which is around perfectionism, the fear of rejection, which is people pleasing, and also just that fear of like abandonment, right? The fear of punishment, I'm going to lose my job, something might happen to me, I might get in trouble. And then that fear of shame and guilt. I'm not worthy, I'm not enough. And so I'm going to feel ashamed for who I am in these situations. And once we realize those 4 drivers tend to be going on in the back of our minds, we can go, where did they come from? And how do I like knock them away and go, this is no longer effective and helpful for me. This is no longer productive. And we start to see that this iceberg doesn't have such a deep tip underneath the water. And it's no longer the driving force for us. We're able to finally go, hey, I don't need to reach burnout because those 3 reasons that we're going towards burnout no longer are things that affect me to the level that they used to. So know yourself and your needs. Understand what gives you energy, what takes your energy. Remember that dig deep button is for crises, not for everyday things. Break up with being plugged in. Allow for the mental breaks. Go be in nature. I mean, there's enough research out there about just getting fresh air, being out in nature, hearing the sound of the birds or water, or we're in the fall time here in Munich and the leaves are starting to fall. And it's like, wow, just the sound of that. It's just really cool. Mindfulness practices are perfect for this as well. And the third thing is don't be afraid to explore what's hidden. Be willing to face it and say to yourself, okay, what's driving me here? What's my why? Why am I doing this? Why am I willing to go and work 45 more minutes when I should get in the car and go home? Like, what's my why? Why is this? Oh, well, I want to prove myself. Okay. Why? So being mindful of that can really help you. Okay. So I think, Lala, I did it in the 20 minutes. Here's how you can connect with me. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear your thoughts. You can find me. I'm largely on Instagram and LinkedIn. I also have my podcast, The Balance Code. And then this website is where you can get some free resources as well to support you in your own journey towards not going towards burnout. But what are the questions you have? Let's see them. Pull up the chat. It takes a lot of effort not to get back on the phone. Get on the phone. Jay, you are right. I was at the airport the other day. It was early flight because I was headed to a conference, and like the sun was coming up through the blinds, and it was beautiful because this airplane was just being lit up by gold light all around it. And I was just like, whoa, just stunned. And then I turned to look like, who else is seeing this? And everyone was on their phones. Like no one saw it. And I almost wanted to be like, look around. But I thought, this is our normal now. We're not even seeing the beauty of what's around us. They're all like hunched, it's early in the morning. They're tired. I get it, but it's like, guys, we're missing what's in front of us. It is there. Okay, Quinn, you said, don't be afraid to explore what's hidden. Reminds me of The Little Prince. Yes. Yeah. There are actually so many great literature pieces, art pieces, and music pieces about this, obviously, because we create from the hidden. So like, let's just go ahead and see what it is. Let's go ahead and see all of it. What questions do you have for me about burnout or stress management? Or maybe you have your own story you'd like to share. We've got some time.
I think Jay.
Yeah.
Jay, wanna share?
Yeah, so it's not really a question. It's more of a thank you for the tools, because I actually did experience full-on verifiable burnout in my former career, and which caused me to leave said former career in conjunction with a health issue that made it impossible for me to even do the former career, which I was like, yay. So when it was time to either pay, $700 to renew my credential or buy myself a DSLR camera, I was like, bye, I'm buying the camera, and best thing that I ever did. But I didn't realize, I could never figure out why it took me so long to get past the burnout stage. And that was in 2015 when I said, I'm done. And so here it is, 8 years later, and it's been in the last year where I've made a significant amount of growth and moving forward and everything. And so I found that part actually quite interesting. And so this talk for me was really like, okay, how can I avoid going back into that with this new career where I've started a business and it's very teeny tiny right now, but I have goals to make it bigger, but I want to keep it fun.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to say thank you, because it really isn't it's not as hard as as one would think it would be to avoid burnout, but it's also a challenge, if that makes sense. So yeah, so it's more of just a thank you.
You're very welcome. And you've got yesterday's workshop and today to like compile together to just move forward without having to worry as much about that. Okay,
Absolutely.
so we've got Karina.
Hi, this has been a great talk. I love your metaphors and all that. Has been wonderful. So my question is about play and fun. Like, I've just gone so long in so many ways. There's like different things that I'm burned out on after years of that. And so, but then there are like these other things. So it's like this big layered crossfades of stressors. So I'm coming off of a few months of doing things that weren't really wholly aligned with what makes me feel alive and engaged as my identity. And sometimes like I'm in fun situations and I can't connect to it because I feel so like just that leftover seriousness has just got such a hold on me, and I try to like shake it off. I try to meditate. I try to, do stuff, but I'm having trouble with that. And I don't know if that's related to burnout or not. But if you have any tips and suggestions about that, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So whenever I hear somebody say like, I still have lingering side effects and I can't enjoy things that I know usually light me up, or like I can feel like this is exciting, but not to the depth it used to be. I encourage people to find some really focused activities that release the stuff you're still holding on to, whether it be the emotional baggage, the mental baggage, our body holds on to a lot of it. So I find like fun things like, are you based in the United States? Okay. So I would say like here in Germany, I'd be like, I'll go bowling. In the States, I'd be like batting cage, or I think you guys have rage rooms in the States. They're not really things here, but like a place where you're expressing out that frustration, stomping, allowing it out. It's the nonverbals, and it is releasing the stressed up tension within you that isn't gonna, you can't think it. There's no guided meditation or journaling or breath work that's going to get it out. It really needs to come out through physical activity. And when my clients start to do that with intention, it's like complete the stress cycle. Oh, like finally.
Okay.
And then they can fully enjoy things. So hopefully that helped. And you can email me for more. Okay, so Jay Shu, I believe. Yes.
Hey, how's it going? By the way, I attended your talk yesterday. I actually, for once, kept really quiet. So, but with Jay and Jay in the room, it may be too much for two Jays sometimes. But, I think the world of you, Jay. So, anyways, but, so I've been listening, I think, because this has been a interesting year. I've lost like 15 friends since February till now, and then got laid off in May. And so it's been a series of just loss that hasn't really stopped. And I've never experienced that before. And so a little bit of the drive that I've had just up into my life is kind of in a weird holding pattern, I think. And I'm just kind of letting the universe kind of push me. Instead of paddling the boat, I put the oar in the boat, and I'm just letting the tide take me for a little bit. And I don't know, thoughts.
Yeah, lots of thoughts. I would invite you to think of it as cocooning.
Okay.
And that you need that. Like this is grief work time. That's a lot of losses. Yeah. And when we have that many losses, the brain and the body need to like figure out who am I in this? Like I'm still here. How is this? And okay, I don't have that job, and who am I, and the identity piece. So if you can just give yourself that space, that time to grieve, the time for it to be quiet. I mean, with grief, we get tired. With grief, we have short-term memory loss, and we sort of like blank out and just can't think. And all of that's normal. And you need that to integrate all of the loss. And I would just encourage you, if you don't have a sounding board, doesn't have to be a therapist, but someone to kind of hear the thoughts about life that are coming up, here are the kind of, the whims I have and the things I don't want to do. If you do have something like photography, like the other Jay, something where it helps you appreciate little moments, creating something or seeing something, those things can just give you the flip side of life, right? Like, wow, there's a lot of loss, and here's creation in that too. Because ultimately, when we come out of that cocoon, which we've got time, so the science of the cocoon is we metamorphosize, right? Like the caterpillar is no longer a caterpillar. It turns to mush inside of it. If you really read the science of what happens, it's crazy. So it's no longer a caterpillar, and it is not a butterfly. And that is you right now, Jay. And so it is like, let me metamorphosize, but I have to stay in the cocoon. And when the time is right, I will come out, and then I'll be this butterfly that how does this butterfly work? Like, what do these wings look like? So you'll have to give the time for that. And John Thomas Dodson and I talked on the first day of the conference, and I'd say, go back and listen to that. And we described how life is literally caterpillar, butterfly, caterpillar, butterfly, caterpillar, butterfly. And it really, I think that analogy helps us realize that it's like, you don't need to force it. And this is just a normal part of life. And the cocoon phase can last as long as it needs to. I mean, obviously we need to pay bills. We need to function. That's where having some support helps, but you don't have to push yourself in this. No.
Yeah. Thanks. I think I needed your exercise yesterday that I kind of participated in, that end of your meditation session where you meet yourself and you hug yourself. That was that was interesting. Yeah.
I can understand. Email me, keep me up, let me know what's going on. Okay.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. Any other question? I think somebody had put something, but Lala, if we're at time, I understand. Please, my email, I'll put in the chat, info@katierössler.com. I'm happy to keep answering questions, but I respect that the time is, we're there.
We just, we still can do one question if somebody wants, as we have a bit of a gap now.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Anne said, any suggestions on how to express these needs to our supervisors who are pushing to make every task a super important and critical thing? God. 4 quadrants of time management. This is why I go speak at companies, because I'm like, let's talk about what's really important and urgent. And it's a very tricky place to be in. The best thing I could do is say, sit down with whoever is your, one person above you and say, can we talk about what's realistic? We all are human beings and we need to have boundaries around our time and our work, or we won't be here anymore to help you guys. Like the company doesn't move forward. And so when you talk about it from a, how can we be productive and make things keep moving, but also respect that you might lose us for sick leave. You might lose us for, all sorts of stuff if you're not careful, then they start to listen. That's what we've had to start doing here. In Germany, you actually can get burnout leave, and it literally there are clinics here because it's taken very seriously, because they recognize how much time it can take to recover. So here it's becoming a more serious thing. I know if you're in the States, that's not always the case, or even in Canada. But I think it's coming and being like, look, sick leave isn't always because we're sick. Sometimes it's mental health days. And the way we decrease that is by being, respectful of boundaries and knowing what is actually important and urgent versus urgent, not important. I love the 4 quadrants of time management. You can just bring that into the office and be like, look at this. Maybe we should base our tasks on this. Any other questions or thoughts?
I think I will raise my hand just to finish. But yeah,
Just locked up again.
Can you hear me, guys?
Now I can. You froze. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sometimes freelancers, we don't have limits in terms of time, responding clients. There is no, we kind of lose the 9 to 6 window, right? And especially for me in the morning, I'm trying to really hard to detach from my phone without start responding my clients. I think there's a lot of brain control. And what would be your advice for the freelancer ones?
I get it.
In terms of boundaries as well, I think.
Yeah, freelancers, entrepreneurs.
And mind control.
Yes. Think about the people you respect most in your life. Are they kind of calm, confident, collected? Or are they like, I got to respond. I got to be on this. I got to do this. Usually they're like calm and relaxed. They take a moment to speak, right? So you're developing that level of respect with your clients by being that person who's like, here are my boundaries. I stick to them. I will respond to you if you want to say within 24 hours. Listen, I know sometimes if you don't respond, you don't get the job. So it is an issue of that. But it's remembering and trusting in the process of building a relationship with your client to understand, here are my working hours. If you've got an email for me, that's great. I'll respond tomorrow at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., whatever your hours are. And then stick to it. So I'm a mom of 3. And if I give one a gummy bear, I got to give all a gummy bear, right? If I once say yes to extra TV time, then the next day it's like, but yesterday you did. It feels that way in our work too. As soon as we break a boundary with a client of like, man, I answered that email or text message at 8:30 at night, all of a sudden I'm available at 8:30 at night. So remember that. Remember the people that you respect and look up to, the way you want to be respected and looked up to, are calm, usually have those boundaries, aren't fearful. And second, that the boundaries are good, that they are the things that, keep you from burning out, or you won't be there for your clients. You won't be able to do that work.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody wants to ask something? Oh, there is someone that.
I was just going to say something, if you can hear me.
Yeah, Bryce.
Karina.
Yeah, well, and you covered it, but it's just, it might be encouraging even to hear some of what you said again. But I feel like the biggest thing for me is the guilt of feeling like, okay, my employer trusts me to work from home. I do edit all day, but then I also teach college courses at night. So I feel like I literally see the faces of people that I am responsible for working with and training. And, setting them on the course for the future. And then I have side work on top of all of that. And it always just feels like, everything is actually important. And,
Yeah.
I've sent one kid through college years ago, but I got remarried. I have a kid who's 13, so I can't take my foot off the gas. I still got to put another one through college. So it's like, I can't say no to stuff, and everything, the stakes are high. So
Yeah.
how do you recommend like dealing with that guilt of like, I need time for me? That just doesn't seem right.
Yes. One of the things I've had to teach myself too is that rest is productive. That if I get that good night's sleep, if I stop doing something and actually eat lunch for 30 minutes in silence, I'm so much sharper. I'm on top of it afterwards. So it's I like to think of it like a marathon. Like what you're doing is sprint to sprint to sprint, right? And instead the marathon is like, if I rest in this moment, I'll carve a minute off later. If I stop for the water break, I'm good for the next 5 miles or whatever. When you have multiple different jobs, then yeah, there's a lot of important urgent and then important non-urgent tasks. And it's hard to then distinguish you time and all of that. All I can say is you are the one who's doing those jobs to get paid, and you will not be able to do those jobs if you don't take care of yourself. So there is your worth in all of that. And when you start to feel guilty for taking time for yourself, this is my husband has this struggle as well. And I've worked through a lot of it within myself. He has said it was never really modeled for me to take time for myself. And in fact, if people took time off, like people were like, you must be lazy. Like, what do you know, negative things were made. So he's had to really work on the fact that his burnout is because he never saw this modeled and he doesn't know how to do it without guilt. So the guilt our brain thinks is a sign we've done something wrong. I would say the guilt is a sign that you're doing something, like it's like crossing your arms a different way. Like it feels uncomfortable and this feels wrong, but I'm just crossing my arms a different way. Like I feel guilty for like unplugging and going for that walk for 20 minutes, but it doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong. It's a mind game. It really is. But the guilt would put a coffin, like I'm stuck and I can't move.
Right.
Like a walk,
Right.
it won't hurt. Eating in silence won't hurt. Going to bed 30 minutes earlier won't hurt. It's hard. I'm not devaluing the difficulties in it, Bryce, because it is.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, anyone else?
I just want to say, Bryce, I hear your pain, brother. I've got, my son just started college and I've got a 16-year-old, and we had kids late. So I'm sitting there looking at my friends retiring with grandkids and I'm sitting there going, man, I've got at least 15 plus years.
Yes,
Dude.
I'm totally in the same boat. And I actually got an early start in my career. So I'm coming up on 40 years of working.
Yeah.
And that's more than enough to say, oh, it's time to take retirement. It's time to take a break. But I did it to myself. So not only do I feel guilty for feeling that way, I feel guilty because I can't point the finger at anybody. It's only my fault.
Yeah. Why didn't I invest in Amazon and Apple?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, hey, man, I tell myself all the time, you cannot go back. I have a good friend of mine that says, I know time travel doesn't exist. And he goes, because if it did, I would have talked to myself already, but the closest thing is your exercise that you did yesterday, Katie. I mean, I'll share this. My message to myself through the meditation was, it's going to be okay. Right. That was pretty awesome.
Hope. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's good.
Totally.
That's
Thank
really
you for
good.
sharing
Thanks, man.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Y'all just send your kids to Germany. School's free here. I mean, we pay out the wazoo in taxes, but you know what? It's
at least you know where the money's going.
That's true. We do.
Right. if you're going to be charged more, I'd like to know where it's going.
Yeah, I was just in Germany and near the Ramstein area, and then we stayed in Baden-Baden. So
Beautiful area. Baden-Baden's beautiful.
Oh, I love Germany. I grew up over there, so my wife hated it, but love Paris and London, but so anyways, thank you, Katie, for
You're so welcome, guys. I've
everything you
enjoyed
do.
this chat afterwards, and this is my fourth and final for the conference, so happy to be here with you guys. Happy to support you all.
It was great to meet you, Katie. And yeah, all the sessions has been, well, unbelievable.
Thank you.
No words to express this. Yeah, thank you so much. I already found you on Instagram. I can
Oh,
see.
good. Oh, we'll
Yeah.
chat. Perfect. I love staying in touch with you. I really am one of those people. I'll leave you voicemails. I'd love to talk to people. So
Yeah,
happy to stay in touch. So
it's been great to hear you. Yeah, all this I think helps a lot in terms of mindset and just believe that it's gonna be fine, and just allow ourselves to take our own time to grow, and don't be scared about things, without moving without fear.
yeah.
There is one startup I saw last week, and it's called Unplug. I think it's based in the UK, but they created cabins in the middle of nowhere, and then you have a small drawer there. You need to put your phone, and you're gonna lock your phone there. Just have the time to take the time to unplug. So it's a great idea.
It's like the sensory deprivation pods, right? Where you kind of float in the water and you can't bring your stuff. And I'm like, oh, that sounds, as a mom of 3, it sounds amazing too. Just be like, oh, guys, I'm in my pod.
Yeah, but we need to allow ourselves to have this time break.
Totally.
Yeah.